Tell me something. How many of you have heard the phrase creating your own career? That is something that I have increasingly explored as a concept, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence tools, but then also the state of the job market in the next like 20 years. So I was watching a Dan Coe video quite recently about the state of jobs in the next 20 years and what's going to happen. And it pairs very nicely with this whole development of like AI tools over the past like 5 to 10 years, and how like tools like ChatGPT, Claude AI, all these AI tools are, rumored to potentially like make people lose their jobs, especially like the white collar people, because blue collar is construction and stuff like that. But it's very interesting because over the next 20 years or something like that, the state of the job market is going to change drastically. And that's not like a prediction, that's a reality. These AI tools that are coming out nowadays are capable of simple automation tasks with like coding, generating images, writing stuff, not to the same extent as a human being in terms of professionalism and like accurate language. But can you imagine what it's going to be like in the next 20 years, where we will be as a society once these AI tools have been completely like developed to the point where they might not even need human beings to like operate anymore? And so going back to the idea of creating your own career, that is something that I have been increasingly doing, but subconsciously. And let me explain what I mean by that. So in my life specifically, I was encouraged to follow the traditional route where, you go to high school, graduate, head to college, get a degree in STEM or whatever. That's what it was for me. Then you go to graduate school, get another degree, and then enter the workforce as a 9 to 5. And then once you enter the workforce 9 to 5, you spend X number of years hopping from company to company and then building your way up. And then eventually you retire at 65. That is the traditional way of life that the majority of Americans currently live by. And there's nothing wrong with that if you actually enjoy what you do for work and you have a good work-life balance, which is what folks get in the public sector all the time. However, this idea of a traditional career path is currently being in the process of phasing out, especially over the past like couple of years since the pandemic started back in like 2020. For example, colleges are getting more expensive nowadays. You see in the news like enrollment rates are dropping substantially, even at community colleges, because of the fact that like people are waking up to the idea of their college degree doesn't necessarily guarantee them a job once they graduate. And then on top of that, they have $100,000 worth of student loan debt if they decide to go to a prestigious university, if they get accepted. Scholarships are few and far between nowadays, and just like the whole academia world is incredibly competitive. I mean, I was lucky enough that when I went to college and grad school a couple of years ago, I was able to get a scholarship because I busted my butt working so dang hard in academia and just studying and just trying to make sure that like I stood out among like the top 10% of my class. Was I the smartest dude in the room? No, and I never will be. I don't consider myself to be like a genius or my IQ being off the charts. I'm just a regular dude that has his interests in life, that somewhat looks physically in shape, and I'm just a normal average dude. Once I like something, I'll study the heck out of it. But anyway, that's just me as a personality trait. But going back to the idea of enrollment rates dropping substantially in colleges and grad school, it's very interesting because Gen Z is now waking up to the idea of a college degree not being worth as much as it used to be 10 to 15 years ago. And in my case, I'm glad that I, went to college, went to grad school, graduated with some minor student debt, and I was able to, get a job because of that degree. But the subsequent problem is that for some reason, every job that I've worked, slowly over a period of time, the sense of dissatisfaction just grows, which is incredibly interesting because that signifies to me that I haven't found truly like what I want to do in my life. And we've talked about this notion of like finding your passion and finding your interests later in life compared to like going to school, learning what you're supposed to learn and graduating and follow that traditional like life path. But you have two paths. I mean, from at least in my own experience, you have the traditional path that 95% of people like embark on, right? But then you have the path of creating your own career, which subdivides into a lot of different categories. You see all of these different stories nowadays of these people starting their like their 5 to 9 side hustles after their 9 to 5, and then making money online off the internet, which is becoming an increasingly common thing nowadays. Everyone wanting to kind of jump into that like bucket of trying to make money online, get a remote job, etc., etc. And this concept of creating your own career, it's a combination of different factors. So you have your interests and your passions, right? Then you have the technical skills that you learn along the way. So like, for example, how to market on social media, how to use Instagram, TikTok, Facebook to get the word out there about your product that you're trying to sell or idea. Then you have your writing capability that lets you like formulate great sentences. Like, for example, I'm not using a script or anything like that to film these chat style videos. Maybe I should, and that would get more views in the long run, but I just don't have time for that. So you have technical skills like social media management, writing, and then you have life experience where over the course of your life you accumulate different interests and you evolve as a person. And so like all these different ideas slap together into the idea of creating your own career. And it's very interesting because you go on YouTube, you search up side hustle, and you filter out all like the scammy like influencers that talk about like the 10 best side hustles of 2024 and how to make 10 grand a month on YouTube or something like that with faceless automated channels. But then you go into like, for example, case studies where there's a YouTube channel that I like called Starter Story. I'll link it in the comment section down below. But what I like about Starter Story is that he interviews people that have successfully transitioned from their main job into a side hustle business that they built to completion. So for example, one of Starter Story's latest videos was about a guy that got disillusioned with his main job, decided to sell everything, quit his job, live out of a van that he bought for $2,000, I think on Craigslist or whatever. And then he ended up building this like $5 million business in the area of Herbalife and products, which I found very fascinating. That is a very specific niche. And at first he was like kind of experimenting with different products from like, I think it was toothpaste or whatever, to now he's trying to go into soaps and stuff like that, but he's like successful in the sense where like he's able to like make the product by hand with like the assistance of people, ship it out, and then make a bunch of revenue. So and he became a business owner from living in a van. You see what I mean? So like that is the notion of creating your own career. And I feel like that is such a divergent way of thinking in today's world that is so, like, the internet has done a fabulous job of decentralizing all the information that you could find. Like, you can find information on anything, as cliche as that sounds, and as obvious as that sounds. Like, in the field of business, right? If you want to learn how to do Facebook ads, just search it up on YouTube. We have so much information on our hands, and yet we are also so blind at the same time, where unless you know like where to look or what to search, you won't have the idea to kind of create your own career and stick to the more traditional path of like going to college, grabbing that degree, entering the workforce. And again, there's nothing wrong with following that for the rest of your life if you want to. But it is a reality for a lot of people nowadays to not like their job and what they do. And that could be for a myriad of many different reasons. For myself personally, it's because I feel like despite going to school for a specific subject, I only like started finding out what I really wanted to do like in my later 20s. I'm 28 right now, right? And so like I'm obsessed with like the Embassy Life in DC project, and the dream, like I've mentioned before, is to make money off of that along with this YouTube channel, which is kind of like a backup plan in case I ever, in case I ever give up, or in case like it just doesn't work out. So it's interesting because like this idea of creating your own career, it's cultural affairs, but it's like the technical skills that we were talking about with social media management, with writing, with a newsletter, with learning how to design a newsletter, learning how to use Canva and Photoshop to design these like basic but incredibly eye-catching posts that like draw people to the page. So like you have all of these ideas, and then you learn as you build. along the way. So there's a noticeable trend nowadays in this like bucket of creating your own career. It's called documenting as you build. And the founder of Beehive, Tyler something, is like a great example of that, because he built Beehive. For those of you who don't know, that's the platform that I use for newsletter design and for like publishing newsletters. They acquired Substack actually fairly recently, if I'm not mistaken. But part of why a lot of people love using Beehive is because of the fact that they allow a lot of creative control over the way that things are designed. They constantly add new features, but most importantly, Tyler builds the company, but he documents it at the same time. So you build or you document as you build. That's like incredibly fascinating, and I feel like that's what everyone is doing right now with having a YouTube channel or doing daily vlogs of their life. Like with the Embassy Life in DC newsletter, I'm basically showing as I build off like the platform. I do these creator reports where I report on how many subscribers I have like every month, how many partnerships that I might be like looking into. So it's kind of documenting as you build and build as you document. It's incredibly fascinating. So with these two paths in life that I've noticed, like the traditional route where you go to school, you get a job, retire at 65, that's one way to live life, right? But then you have your creating your own career standpoint, which it seems like more and more people are doing. Granted, social media and the internet do a fine job of showing you examples that work, but for every one successful case study, there's 20 that gave up on their dreams. There's 20 that just decided it wasn't worth it, or it failed because they made a particularly bad investment. So there's a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad and stuff like that. So with creating your own career, you have to become an entrepreneur, because that is the only way that you will have true creative control over your life, and where you won't spend the rest of your life not chained to a desk or working for somebody else. There's a time and a place for that. And if you enjoy what you do, great. Like most people aren't meant to be entrepreneurs. Most people just like to work a 9 to 5. They like to go home to their families, etc., etc. For me personally, it's like I spend every waking moment that I can on my Embassy Life in DC project as a startup, and then the YouTube channel as well. So it's just like I'm in the right season of building. We also talked about that in another video where you have different seasons of life. Go check that out if you haven't done that already. And it's very interesting because like in a sense I am creating my own career, but it's like a merger of like all these different things. Like with the Embassy Life in DC project, one of the thoughts that I've had quite recently is like, if I ever left DC, right? Because I'm not going to be around here forever. I'm going to want to like move to a different place. I might want to move back to Europe because I'm half French. I might want to live in Australia for a while. You know what I mean? Like life just takes you where you want to go. So like, for example, you're allowed to pivot with whatever career that you want to do, be it a professional one or create your own one. So it's like, instead of covering just exclusively embassy events, you pivot into travel and tourism as an example. That's what I've been doing quite recently actually, or trying to get into more of that. So it's very interesting. Like this concept of creating your own career is something that I did not know existed. And how could I? Like I was going to school, I was trying to figure out who I was and trying to figure out like who I was before I knew what I wanted to do. And I think I figured out like who I am so far. But at the same time, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. And through this YouTube channel and through the Embassy Life in DC project, I'm closer to that, you know what I mean? Like what I really want to do in my life. So those are like the first two main parts of this video. I was like talking about like the comparisons between like a traditional way of a career, right? And then creating your own career. And then to sum it all up with a bow on a metaphorical cake, the rise of AI, and then how you can be truly irreplaceable in a job market that is constantly shifting. So as we all know, the rise of AI is already here. We all know that. And so with the rise of these AI tools, jobs are going to be phased out. I mean, it's already honestly kind of happening right now. I think like the owner of IBM said that like he wants to replace 30% of like the jobs at IBM with AI to free up like greater capacity. but people are going to lose their jobs and stuff like that. That's just a reality. And then there's this whole notion, and this is a notion that's old as time, about being replaceable in a company that just treats you, as a piece of paper in like a record or whatever. So like the idea of becoming irreplaceable is tied intrinsically to creating your own career. And it's super important because if you can create your own career in a combination of niches, demonstrate adequate expertise and experience, build up a lot of technical skills to like find different ways to market products through like social media, video design, graphic design, it doesn't matter, figure it out. You are truly irreplaceable in a sense where there's no one else doing what you do. And I feel like that's where kind of the job market might be heading in the future as we like kind of go into like the rise of AI tools and like older jobs being phased out of existence in lieu of newer jobs, right? There are some sectors, for example, with blue-collar jobs that are constantly reputed to be jobs that will never get phased out by AI, and that's true. I think to like a certain extent, though, because like with blue-collar jobs, it's human beings doing manual labor, right? Building houses, moving bricks, roofs, and stuff like that. You'd be surprised, out of all the crazy stuff that you see nowadays, like for example Boston Dynamics like coming out with these robots that can walk, jump, handle things very meticulously with their robotic hands. I don't know, robotics might get like a huge upgrade in like the next 20 years to the point where like human labor might actually go down. But anyway, that's a different story for another time. But with the notion of becoming like irreplaceable, I think that's where this like idea of creating your own career like stems from very strongly. It's like if you can be the expert in like, for example, take me, if I can become an expert in like the realm of international affairs, cultural events, and other subjects like in the DC area and also possibly beyond, I'm truly irreplaceable because there's no one else doing what I do. But there is also the caveat where like, for one person there's like 100 imitations, especially as you grow like more successful. There's always that healthy competition out there where people try to, upsell you, try to like, copy what you do to a certain extent. Hopefully they don't have the same passion as you do because like, you have imitations of business ideas like all the time, which is, a little irritating. So there's that as well. But, hopefully you can find your own way to put a spin on it that is very unique to yourself, using your own experience, using your values, your technical skill set. And then for all the false imitations out there, they don't have like the same zeal and passion for like this type of stuff like you do. So just to sum it all up, we covered the traditional way of creating a career, right? Applying for a job, getting a degree, et cetera, et cetera. But then we also talked about creating your own career through your experiences, your values, your technical skills, and your interests. I've talked a lot about this before where all the educational videos that I've like published thus far with the many 50 videos that I've done, including shorts, about all these different skills from like networking to writing to marketing and stuff like that. Where do you think that's all going to? Like those technical know-hows, the playlist is called the Creative Synthesizer for a reason, because as Dan Coe puts it, we're in a second digital renaissance, and you can truly see it around you, where again, people are creating their own careers. It takes them a long time. I'm not saying that you'll create like your job or whatever and make like $1 million a month overnight. That's just, that's not possible unless like you buy out a company or you have so much leverage that you can do that. But that's very rare, if not impossible. Like it doesn't happen overnight. These people that you see online with these different case studies of like making $1 million a year from like YouTube or a company like the Starter Story guy from like Mr. Van Life, I think his name is called. He didn't do that overnight. It took him years to get to that point. And for me so far, it's only been 2 months as of this video since I started the YouTube channel, and then a year and 2 months roughly for like the Embassy Life in DC project. So that's why you have to think about these projects in year-long spans. And that's why like people are so used to the short end of the stick where it's just like, I'm gonna try this out for like a week, and then if it doesn't work out, I'm gonna just give up. It's like you won't really see, it's like working out, like you won't really see a lot of growth if you just stick to that mentality. So play the long game, not the short game. And as I say that, I'm also a hypocrite because I think of the short game more than I do the long game. So take all this advice with the following statement. Create your own career with your interests, your life experience, your skill sets, and your values. Because the state of the job market is going to change in the next 20 years, especially with the rise of smarter and smarter AI tools. Like and subscribe for more as we explore more of these career development type questions and just concepts. And I hope you have a good day or night wherever you are. Ciao.